Daycare or School Disappeared? By U/T.L. Brown. About 2 blocks to the left from my mother-in-law's house, there is a daycare. Or at least there was, until yesterday. A year ago, we lived right across the street from her, and I remember seeing little kids walking home from the school with their moms and backpacks on. I vividly remember the sign out front which had a rainbow and sun on it. When I was driving to her house from a different way than I'd usually come, I used the daycare as a landmark to know that my turn was coming up, since I've missed the turn in the past. I've even turned down the road right after the daycare by mistake a couple of times in the beginning. The point is, I know this daycare was there, and it's not something that I would just forget or mistake its location. My husband and I were discussing daycare options for our son yesterday when I said, "What about the one right down the road from your parents?" He had no idea what I was talking about, and I didn't understand why, because him and his family have lived there for many years. He brought it up to his parents when we picked our son, and they had no idea what I was talking about either. His mom walks everywhere, so I thought for sure that she would know what I was talking about, but didn't. We drove up and down the road twice so I could show him the school that I was talking about, but it wasn't there. The whole building was replaced by others as if it never existed. The little parking lot, rainbow sign, and little one-story building were gone and replaced by a nameless building that I do not recall. My husband thinks that I'm just misremembering it or mistaking its location, but I know I'm not and can find no evidence of this daycare on Google. About 2 months ago is the last time that I remember seeing the school, because I had to use it as my reminder to turn. So, as you can guess, I'm having a really hard time trying to comprehend or figure this out, even starting to question my sanity a bit. Why am I the only one that remembers this school? It just doesn't make any sense, and I can't think of any rational reason to this, because I know this is not something I'm just misremembering, as my husband likes to put it. Does anybody have any theories? Driving Glitch by U/Dobin the Wonder Horse. This happened to me today. I was driving with my wife to a local beach with our dog. I'm in the UK and on the motorway, and I'm waiting to turn left off the motorway. But I'm stuck behind a slow driver. The driver was in a red, old small car doing around 58 meters per hour. The speed limit is 70, so my wife and I both complained about the driver. I was coming off the motorway, so I couldn't overtake him, so we both had a moan. Anyway, our junction was coming up and the slip road ran alongside the main motorway for a short distance. So I had to undertake the driver, which always makes me feel nervous because he was driving really slow and he might take the junction at the last minute. I'm saying all of this because we really remember the driver. He was obese, dark hair, and hadn't shaved. So we were driving in the right lane of the slip road and joined another motorway. I'm driving the middle lane and moved to the right side doing an 80. About a mile or two, I overtake the same car and the same man. He's doing 60 in the middle lane, and it's the exact same car and person. My wife couldn't believe it, and we are still questioning how is it possible that he managed to get ahead of us. The only explanation I can think of is that there are 2 people who look the same, driving the same red old car, and driving frustratingly slow in the same area. Or is it a glitch? Does anybody have any ideas? Money Out of the Blue by u/flyingoctopus_33. Both of these things happened within a span of a few days, about 15 years ago. I was on a break at work, and back then, I smoked, so I was in my car smoking a cigarette with the window down. I used to keep a sketchbook in my car to draw a doodle to pass the time. I was currently not sketching, but the book was sitting right next to me on the passenger seat. I was looking in my wallet and thought, it would be so nice to have more money in my wallet. Just a random thought, like we all probably have once in a while. I put the wallet away, opened the sketchbook to draw, and boom, a $50 bill. Absolutely no explanation for that. I wasn't missing any money, and nobody else had been in my car for about a week, and I'd been working out of the sketchbook every day. This money just randomly showed up. I was shocked. Later that day, I asked any probable passengers, my sister and a couple of friends, if they lost the $50 bill. Nope. Weird, but I thank the universe. A few days later, I'm at work and I'm walking outside to my car for my break again. As I'm walking to my car, I randomly think about how grateful I was to have that $50 appear, and how awesome it would be to find more money. And no joke, I walk another 25 feet and something catches my eye. It was a small pile of 4 $100 bills. What are the odds? My jaw drops and I can't begin to understand. I think, okay, this is someone's money. So, I bring it to the front office and ask the receptionist to hold it and to help me find out if someone dropped the money outside somewhere. Well, after a week, nobody claimed the money, so she said it was rightfully mine. I guess it was meant for me all along. Anyone have this happen? I was so grateful, yet confused. And I'll remember those 2 instances, always. Money reappeared in my wallet after I already spent it. By u/Vicious Grace. I went to the mall today with my brother to buy sunscreen for an upcoming company beach trip. It's already the 30th of March and I don't get paid until the 1st of April. So all I have in my wallet is 1,000 Philippine pesos, which is about $20. I go and buy the sunscreen, just a 100 ml tube for 300 Philippine pesos, and now I have 700 left. We grabbed a quick snack, and I spent about 215 there on my meal and drinks. I should have 485 pesos left, and as I was walking around the mall, I was very aware of this fact, since, there are so many nice stuff around that I would want to buy, but your girl was broke. After a bit of walking, we decided to sit down in one of the mall benches. There weren't a lot of people, so I felt safe opening my wallet and organizing my bills, which I stuffed haphazardly in my wallet to avoid standing too long in front of the cashier. Well, I have anxiety. As I was organizing my cash, I can see the 485 that I still have, 4 100 peso bills, a 50, and a 35 and change. But to my surprise though, I also see a 1,000 peso bill in there, tucked in neatly in my wallet, instead of haphazardly with the rest of the money. Now, if this was a mistake with the change I was given, it should have been with the rest of the crumpled bills that I shoved into my wallet, since I didn't take the time to properly slip any of those in. But this bill was laid out neatly in one of the folds of my wallet, and it looks exactly like the 1,000 peso bill I originally had before I spent it. The bill was kinda old, not crisp, but not too worn down either. It has obviously changed hands a bunch of times. I thought to myself, is it possible that I had 2,000 pesos instead of just 1,000? But honestly, no. I don't know if any of you guys do this at the end of the month, but I anxiously count my cash before payday, hoping that I don't run out before I get paid, hoping that the money multiplies on its own somehow, which is a funny thought. So I thought for a fact that I had that 1,000 left and nothing more. I would have chalked this up to me just being absent-minded, which isn't something that I usually am anyway. If not for the fact that 1,000 Philippine pesos I spent and the one I'm now convinced reappeared in my wallet felt exactly like the same bill. I didn't look too closely at it to begin with, and to be honest, but what are the odds that I have the same semi-worn down bill in my wallet when I am absolutely sure that I had only one left? What kind of glitch in the matrix is this? And can it happen more often? Especially to those people who absolutely need it. The Town That Shouldn't Exist by U/Wim Bussin. This was maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and it still creeps me out just thinking about it. I was in a car with my mom heading home from a museum that we had been to multiple times before. So, obviously, the road we took should have been familiar. But about 20 minutes into the drive, we both realized we're completely lost on some back road neither of us had ever seen before. We pull up Google Maps to get back on the road, and it starts navigating us. Maybe another 10 minutes later, and the road has become a narrow dirt path in the woods. But Google is still telling us to go this way, so whatever. All of a sudden, this narrow dirt path opens up into a brand new paved road. The woods open up into a massive field, and we're right in the middle of a shiny new suburban area. There was a sign on the side of the road, but it was completely blank. The GPS told us to drive through this suburb, so we did. And it was empty. No cars, no people. It was daytime, but there wasn't a single light on in any window, which felt odd. Everything looked brand new, but there was no construction or road equipment anywhere. And there were no stores or gas stations or anything except for what looked like a McDonald's with no branding. We kept going on for 10 minutes or so, and the road turned back into dirt, and it went right back into the woods. And maybe 5 minutes later, we were back in our normal town. Now, this could have easily been some weird testing area, but there were no trespassing signs. It wasn't fenced off, had no one guarding it, and had no evidence of anyone staying there, and etc. It was just empty. The whole time I felt like I just shouldn't be there. It was just wrong. Looking at that area on Google Maps still only shows the woods. And that field would have definitely been visible by a satellite. Time Glitch by U/Carrig Frizz Warrior. I experienced a time glitch about 5 years ago, and I am still trying to figure out if there is a rational explanation. At that time, I was working in an office in Cork City Center, and the car park that I used was over a kilometer away. There were a few different routes from the office to the car park, but it was all uphill on the way back to the car. If I took the shortest route and really rushed, practically ran, and on a nice day, it would take at least 9 minutes. If I walked at the usual pace, it would take up to 14 minutes as there are several roads that need to be crossed. The day in question, I left the office along with 3 of my work colleagues, and we left at bang on 5 p.m. Yes, I checked with the others later. We exactly left at 5 p.m. The 4 of us walked part of the way together, and then the other 3 branched off as they used another nearer car park, which were more expensive. At that time, I used my walk to the car park to practice mindfulness. I tuned it into my surroundings, listened to the sounds, looked at people, experienced being in the moment, and etc. I remember climbing the steep stone steps in Kazers beside Elizabeth Fort, and the next thing I was aware of was rounding the corner onto Tower Street. I got into my car totally confused. There was a big gap on my route. I got into my car and the time in my car was showing a 17:07, same on my watch. And I turned on the car radio and time check announced 7 minutes past 5. I could not have gotten there that fast, particularly as the first part of the walk included chatting with 3 work colleagues. I racked my memory for the walk to the car and there is a huge gap. I have no memory at all walking along several streets. What is particularly strange is that one of my neighbors works in a dentist surgery along the route, and I would have usually waved in the window to her as I passed. So, I would always look to see if she was still working. But I have no memory whatsoever of this section of the route. I would also add that Cork City is pretty old and the area that I was walking in is one of the oldest sections. Did I walk into some time loop and get spat out in a different place? I thought about this over and over, but I cannot explain it. Waffle Premonition by U/Vinaigrette Salad 666. This just happened 5 minutes ago. I'm laying in my dark room listening to music. I then hear my brother come down the stairs to go to bed, and it's 12:30. It then occurred to me that I left a frozen half-eaten waffle on our kitchen island, and I know that if I don't put it on a plate in the fridge, my parents are going to throw it out in the morning. So I call my brother and ask him, "Hey, can you put the waffle on the island on a plate and in the fridge?" And as the words were coming out of my mouth, there was the overwhelming feeling that I can't quite put into words, that this exact moment happened before. It felt like a déjà vu but more intense. Everything about that moment was so specific that I knew this moment had manifested out in a dream or in a daydream before. What feels like months ago. And just as this extreme sense of déjà vu, more like I've already lived this feeling before it came over me, it dissipated as though I was not allowed to recognize it. And even now, this feels totally absurd. I have had 2 déjà vus that I'm convinced were moments and scenes from dreams that then got realized in real life. But just now with this waffle stuff, it was so oddly specific that I instantly knew this had happened before, like there was no doubt in my mind. So strange. It almost feels like I caught up with my present and future that manifested itself to me in a dream in the past months ago. Doppelganger Everything Except Color of Car by u/TXUJ. I have lived in 4 different states on both US coasts as an adult, all with my wife. One place we lived was Oxford, Pennsylvania. This true story happened in 2018 between January and July. In town, we would see this young lady, maybe 20 years old, slim, dirty blonde hair, who was obviously living out of her car. This was common on the West Coast where we moved to, but uncommon enough there that I always noticed her. She drove, lived in, slept in a white 4-door Hyundai Elantra with her small dog and a huge pink and black tiger stripe pillow in the back seat, along with a white blanket. The pillow and blanket were always visible, and I always noticed her based on the car and the stuff in her car that was easy to see as it was packed up to the rear window. I would point her out to my wife, who also began noticing her in town. I saw her often all over town. Sometimes, she'd sleep at gas stations or in a parking lot near my work. I sometimes wondered if I should offer to help her somehow, but my gut instinct told me not to, for whatever reason. Now, the strange part. All of a sudden, we began seeing the same car, woman, dog, pillow, and blanket combo around town doing the exact same things, sleeping at gas stations, empty lots, and etc. Except, this car was black, same everything, but a black Hyundai Elantra instead of a white one. The one did not replace the other one. We would see them alternately, never at the same time or even day. But combined, we probably saw them a few times a week at least, and it seemed totally random which version we would see that day. Like I said, everything was the same, except the color of the car. The type of car, the appearance of the driver, the appearance of the dog, the appearance of the zebra stripe pillow, the blanket, the locations they were parked or driving at, everything. Except one car was black and the other was white. We moved that July and saw them both right up to the time we moved. A very bizarre coincidence that we still talk about. Probably the craziest thing that I have ever seen. By u/TreyJ88. I lurk around this sub, and I'm still not convinced of the whole simulation thing and such. I'm skeptical of some of the things that I read here, as internet strangers tend to make up stories. However, I saw some pretty crazy shit happen a few years back regarding the moon. It was a full white moon this night, no cloud coverage or whatsoever, and me and my buddy are driving back home down a road that we drive on literally every day. Directly in front of us, past the end of this road, is the moon in the horizon sitting slightly above the tree line. The thing is, there was some of it missing. About a third of the way down the moon, there was a perfectly straight black line going through it. It wasn't a power line or anything, and there was nothing obstructing the view. The best way I've been able to describe it is imagine going into Microsoft Paint and using the line dragging tool where you can make a perfectly straight rectangular line. That's what it looked like. My buddy and I stopped in the middle of the road, wondering if anybody else is seeing this shit. But it gets weirder. As we're observing this, The moon begins to disappear as we were watching it. It looked like somebody was pulling up a sticker or an image was erasing itself from the top to the bottom. The moon just started vanishing slowly in the most computerized way that you can imagine. Like it really looked digital in nature. So we sit there speechless for a while before we continue to finish the drive home, which was around 2 minutes away. When we get back, we get out and then see the moon again in a completely different place in the sky. And it was a blood moon with a noticeable reddish tint. This was not the case a few minutes ago, nor did it have the black line. My Mom's Ring by U/Miss Stockholm. Last summer, I bought my first house in the UK. While I was packing, I put my jewelry in different boxes. I keep gold and silver separately. I remember putting the ring from my mom in a small box, along with other gold stuff. Just a bit of a backstory. My dad gave my mom a ring for her 18th birthday as a promise or engagement ring, and my mom gave it to me when I was a teenager, so I've had it with me for over 10 years. I remember showing it to my partner, and I remember seeing it in the box trying to put it on, realizing how small it is. When unpacking, I couldn't find the ring anywhere. So I assumed that I might have thrown it away by mistake. I turned the house upside down trying to find it, but with no luck. It took me months until I was brave enough to finally tell my mom. But her answer baffled me. I have the ring here. I just saw it in my jewelry box. As I mentioned above, I live in the UK and my mom is in Germany. It is physically impossible for that ring to be with her when I have had it for over 10 years. Some of you suggested that it might have been a different ring, so I called my mom this morning and asked her to send me a photo of the ring. It's the same ring, and she cannot remember me giving her the ring or her taking it from me. Story by U/Sock Tacos. About 2 weeks ago, I was feeling off, like I was going to have a heart attack or going to pass out or throw up. I don't have insurance at the moment, so I decided that I would just sleep it off. My daughter's favorite toy was on the couch when I came out of the living room. It was a blue dinosaur plushie that she takes everywhere with her. Well, I scooted it over on the couch and started watching TV, hoping that I would pass out, and I grabbed her toy and had it in my hands to distract me. I eventually fell asleep and woke up the next day. My girlfriend and kid were gone, and I got up to get some water. I looked down on the floor and thought, shit, she forgot her toy. She's gonna have a fit. Then it hit me. Instead of the dark blue toy that I see all the time, it was bright green. I know, I'm not crazy. She's had it for a year now, and when I had asked what should we name it, I even said we should name it Blue. She throws a fit about the toy constantly and says, "I want my blue dinosaur!" So I know for a motherfucking fact that this thing was blue. I thought maybe she had a second dinosaur similar, and I'm not crazy. Then my girlfriend calls me asking if her toy was still at home. I ask, "The blue dinosaur?" She replied, "No, the green one she has all the time." I said, "Well, what about the blue one?" To which she responded, "There's no blue one. What are you talking about?" My head started to spin. I started reading online about theories on our consciousness traveling to another dimension when we die, because I admit I was having a bit of a death anxiety after that night. I usually have panic attacks or anxiety, but this was way different. Anyways, I started looking into theories about souls and consciousness and came across that one and how it lays within the parameters of infinite universes and small things in people's lives changing after an accident or a near-death experience. I'm not convinced I died, but something weird definitely happened that night. And now, I have this bright green dinosaur making me question everything I know. Story by U/The Third Heat 369. Okay, so I haven't thought about this in years, but this subreddit brought this incident back to the forefront of my mind. It was July 4, 2011, and obviously, in the US, that's Independence Day, so I got together with a group of friends to go out. But because 4th of July was on the weekday that year, I had an early shift the following day, so I decided that I shouldn't drink. The night was fun, but around 8 p.m., I decided that I should try to get back to my side of town before the fireworks started, because I figured that traffic and people drunk driving would get worse if I stayed at my friend's house until after the fireworks. So, I'm driving up this narrow side street going up towards my house, but the side street is one many of the locals use to get from my neighborhood to our south side, which is a major drinking and partying hotspot. Anyway, I had on this very distinctive and obnoxious American flag shirt where the bodice part had red and white stripes and the arms were blue with white stars. I bought the shirt from a thrift store, and I had never seen anyone wear something similar, but who knows. Anyway, as I am driving down the street, I see what looks like a woman with a similar shirt as mine passed out face down on the sidewalk. Like, she looked like there was something seriously wrong too, like she face planted into the ground or something. So I decided to pull over and go and check on her. But because the street is so narrow, you can't just double park, you have to go and find a place to pull over. So I park down the block and go back to help this lady. I have been down this road many times throughout my life, so I know the landmarks well, and I knew exactly where she had been laying. Also, even though I had to park down the street, I literally ran back to her. It couldn't have been more than 3 to 4 minutes max. So, I get to where I knew I saw her, and there's nothing. No sign of anyone, no one walking down the street or anything. It was so bizarre. And I got chills, so I decided to drop it and go back to my car. As I'm getting ready to cross the street again, this car comes speeding up the street toward me, and before I could even think, it crashes smack into the retaining wall right by where I was standing literally seconds before. Then, this nutjob backs out and drives off. So, one of the neighbors comes out and we call the police, and I helped file a police report and then went home. When I get home, I called my mom to tell her about what happened because I was still so shaken up, and she's the one who started putting things together and made me really think about this as a glitch in the matrix. She felt like I had somehow witnessed some alternative reality where I saw myself dead on a sidewalk because in that reality, maybe a car struck me earlier than the car that arrived in this dimension. I don't know. I didn't really know what to make of it then. And I suppose I still don't. But coming here on Reddit today makes me think it was maybe just another glitch in the Matrix. Story by u/manedno. This was only a few years ago, and I'm currently 18. I was outside and I found my mom's credit card. Not sure what it was, but it was something important and something that I wanted to give to her immediately. So, I went inside and saw the door to the laundry room was closed. We lived in an absolute shithole, so the door wasn't even on the hinges. It just sat against the doorframe whenever someone went in there and needed to have privacy. Why is this important? Because, since it was like that, I was able to talk to her through it clearly and not be muffled like any door that's shut because, like I said, it was just leaning against the doorframe. So, I had the card and went inside to tell her, and I had it and wanted to give it to her, and the following conversation happened. I said, "Hey, I have your card here. It was outside and on the ground. What do you want me to do with it?" And she answered, "Oh, thank you. Just go ahead and hand it here." So again, since the door was just leaning against the wall, I could reach into the room around it without seeing there. So, I was reaching my hand into there with a card wanting to give it to her and ask if she was gonna take it. That's when from the opposite side of our trailer, I heard her ask me who I was talking to. It's a small trailer, so you could hear someone from the opposite end pretty easily. I went back there and handed it to her, and I told her, "I thought I was just talking to you from the laundry room." But she claimed that she had been sitting back there on the opposite side of the trailer in her room for a while now. I, of course, went back to the laundry room, looked inside, and sure enough, there was nobody inside there. I am absolutely sure it was her voice and coming from the room right in front of me, not only because I could just hear it right in front of me, but I could hear her voice almost echo in there because of how the room is, and it's the only room there that would be able to make someone's voice echo. I have no idea what or who I heard in the laundry room, but it spooks me even more now thinking about it, because for some reason at that time, I ignored it and tried not to think about it. Story by u/Rusty_Hauser. To this day, I still can't explain this. So before I start, I would like to clarify, at the time of this event, my area was experiencing heavy rain and flooding. So, I was at a friend's house after work, just stopped in to catch up. I was there after dark, when a violent storm started blowing in. Knowing the current situation, I decided to leave before the roads closed again. So instead of going down the highway, I went to the back roads which cut through thick bushland. Stupid, I know. Anyways, I really had to piss, so I found a spot and stopped. I put my hazards and high beams on to make sure traffic would see me from both directions, as my car is hard to see at night. This will be relevant later. Anyways, I pull my jacket on and go into the trees on the side of the road. The rain is pounding, and the wind is gale force and the lightning and thunder are just insane. I realized that the storm's getting worse, so I finish up and hurry back to my car to find it gone. Like I said, my car is hard to see, so I looked around thinking that I'd gotten disoriented by the storm, but I realized that I couldn't see the glow of my lights anywhere or hear the stereo blasting. Immediately, I panicked, thinking that I'd been carjacked in the middle of nowhere. So I start walking around, hoping to God that I've just walked too far. But no, my car was gone. The storm was setting in by now, and I started getting terrified because there's a fuck-all shelter out here. I decided to call my dad to come get me, and I turned against the rain to find his number when I was shaken by a deafening crack of thunder. I then heard a familiar sound and turned around to find my car. Lights on, hazards blazing, exactly where I'd parked it. I still don't know what happened that night, but fuck, I booked it out of there quick smart after that event. Story by I live for scary stories. I was on a long drive with my boyfriend down a long straight highway, perfectly clear blue sky, just a couple wispy clouds. I saw a plane flying and then suddenly disappear. No, it didn't just get further out of my sight or go behind a cloud. It was flying in a straight line and fairly low and close enough to be very visible. And it just disappeared. The best way that I can describe it was if you were watching a play with the sky painted on a backdrop, and instead of someone going in front of the backdrop, they walked behind it and disappeared from sight. It was literally like the plane flew behind a wall in the sky and then disappeared. I freaked out, and I told my boyfriend to keep an eye on the sky in case it happened again because I wanted him to confirm what I saw. Lo and behold, another plane did the same thing, and then another, and at this point we were wondering if it was the same planes reappearing from behind the wall because we saw this happen to 4 or 5 different planes. I don't know shit about traffic control, but I can't imagine there being that many planes so close flying together in different directions and then just disappearing completely. As if they disappeared, reappeared, and then disappeared again. There were no clouds in the way, and there was no logical explanation at all for it, and I've never seen anything like it before or since. Has anyone ever seen anything like this before? Story by Discount Jokes. More bizarre, less creepy story, but one that still lingers in the back of my mind to this day. It was only 2 years ago, so it's still a pretty fresh memory. I was taking a walk around my neighborhood because the weather was nice, and I decided it would be nice to get a little cardio in. So, I left my house at about 1 in the afternoon and made my way to the local high school. I decided that I'd walk to the campus, then double back and head home. It's a decent distance away, so going to and from was ideal for a walk. About after 20 minutes, I was a block away from the campus and could view the top of the building from where I was. There, I was almost at the corner closest to the school a block away, and at that corner, a black slim car turned the corner, passed by me, and drove down the street. However, I'm a very anxious and bored person, so the minute I noticed people, of course, I'd be interested in the micro journey I was witnessing. In other words, I turned my head to watch the car after only a few seconds of it turning the corner. The car was gone. Completely vanished. And note that I'm still at the far corner of a city block, which means there should still be a good 20 seconds or so before the car can even turn again. Not to mention, why would the car turn? If it wanted to go to my right instead of my left, it could have just kept driving straight. Sure, he could have just had a house on that side of the block, but I felt it was a worthy thing to mention. Puzzled, I stood there for a few seconds before turning back around and continuing forward. Another strange thing caught my eye then. An old woman watering her garden off to my right. Okay, cool. I wasn't the only witness. However, I shook my head and just assumed that it was all just a coincidence. I looked straight ahead again towards the school. Only for that same car to be turning right in front of me again and passing me again and vanishing again once my eyes followed suit as it left my immediate vision. Now it was weird. The same black car had turned the same corner and vanished behind me for a split few seconds that it wasn't in view twice now. It was such an anomaly. I'd never witnessed things like this before, and I haven't since. Some things to note now. First, there is no way that it's an optical illusion, where the car just barely manages to look like it's vanished by hiding behind another car closer in view. This city block was stretched far enough that I could still see anything in the road. Not to mention, there were no parked cars in the street immediately to my side. Of course, there were a few sprinkled about, but nothing directly next to me. Second, it wasn't a dream. I'm just reviewing as a memory on accident. The amount of details is too much for someone like me who constantly forgets dreams. Number 3, I wasn't deep in thought or listening to music, just going with the flow of my walk, focusing more on the heat than anything else. That means there's no way time just passed a lot faster than I thought. Unless I was just really intensely paying attention to the sky or the school, and there's no room to explain that. And lastly, I wasn't exactly paying attention to the noises around me. There is no recollection of car engines at all. So, does anybody have any thoughts about this? Story by u/Cinderella Beans. For context, I live away at university and my parents live 2 hours from me back home. This happened last year when I was moving back to school after Christmas. My parents moved me back in and sent me with a bunch of groceries and home-cooked meals, all of which was packed in this red customized cooler bag that my brother got made for my mom. I always give my parents the cooler bags back, but because of COVID and my roommates, they didn't want to come in, so they dropped me off, and I told them that I'd return everything another time. Fast forward a month while on a walk, I was FaceTiming my mom, and she was packing up for the cottage. In the background, I suddenly saw the cooler bag, the exact same bag that I had in my apartment at school. I started freaking out, and my mom just thought that I was nuts because she told me that I returned the bag to her the day that they moved me in. I knew that wasn't the case because I had just seen the bag the other day. When I got back home from my walk, I looked under the kitchen sink and the bag wasn't there. I asked my roommate, and it turned out that she decided to use it for groceries that day. How can this one-of-a-kind bag be in 2 places at once? And the one time it was out of my presence, I saw it on FaceTime in a city 2 hours away. Also, there's no chances of having 2 of these bags. My brother shipped it from across the country, and I was there when the package was opened with only one bag in it. Also, I didn't want to go back home in between the university drop-off and this FaceTime call. I have no explanations other than it was in two places at once. Story by u/Lupin_Bun. Not massively interesting, but I recently knocked my hairbrush off the arm of a sofa with my elbow while I was watching TV, and it fell in between the sofa and the armchair. I leant over the sofa and felt around for it, but I couldn't find it. So I knelt up on the sofa and searched around for it between the furniture. Nothing. I was annoyed because it was my personal hairbrush that I bought for my exclusive use because my partner wears a lot of hair products. And I mean a lot of hair products. He owns 2 or 3 brushes and goodness knows how many combs, and they are all gummed up with pomade, which grosses me out. So I bought my own bright yellow hairbrush that he is not allowed to use. With that said, I was really determined that I was going to find my hairbrush. So when I still couldn't find it, I actually got off the sofa and lay down on the floor to look under the furniture. Nothing. I pulled the sofa off and the armchair out to look underneath. Nothing. I even tipped out my handbag that was on the floor in case it had somehow bounced 5 feet into it without me noticing. Nothing. It was like my hairbrush had just fallen into another dimension. It was literally nowhere. I ended up buying myself another hairbrush the next day, different to the original one. Fast forward about 2 months later, and I was just chilling, watching TV again, and I leant down to pick up my dinner plate that I'd put there while I finished watching a movie. And sitting beside it, looking as innocent as day, was my lost hairbrush. I now have 2 hairbrushes, and I have no idea where my original yellow one vanished off to for 2 months, but I hope it had fun. Story by u/VRL95. This happened a couple of months ago. There was an old lady that sat close to the entrance of a huge mall near my home, selling different types of candy. She seemed very poor and fragile, at least 80 years old, and in multiple times I would pass by her, my heart would always break a little. I would want to buy some candy from her to help out, but now we live in the world of credit cards, and I would never have change with me. One time, I even expressed this feeling of regret to my girlfriend when we went to watch a movie in that mall. She said she felt the same and that she would picture her grandmother in a situation like that and feel sad too. Then, a couple of months ago, I was going to the mall to buy some cooking utensils with my mother, which was visiting me at that time. I saw the old lady again selling her candy and then passed by. But when we were almost at the store, I remember that at this time I had a bunch of coins and a couple of dollars in my wallet, so I went back. I showed her all the money that I had on me and asked how much candy it could buy. I got a Mentos and 4 pieces of bubble gum, and I showed her the candy and asked if that amount was okay. Her eyes were barely open, her voice was low and raspy, but she smiled a little and said something like, "Yes, son, don't worry, God bless." I went back to join my mom, feeling a little better. Now, ever since I'm little, I love candy. My grandma would buy boxes of stuff, and she would have to hide it so that I wouldn't eat it all in a day. especially gum. I go through them really fast. So in about 10 minutes, I was done with all the 4 pieces of bubble gum and reached to my pocket to start eating the Mentos. But when I took my hand out of my pocket, there were 4 additional pieces of bubble gum on my hand on top of the box of Mentos. We were walking through the store and I stopped in my tracks. I explained what had happened to my mom, but she just laughed and dismissed me. I distinctly remember counting all the candy to make sure that I wouldn't take more than my money's worth, and even showing it to the old lady. It's very minor, especially compared to the other stories in this sub, but it made me feel nice. I think about it a lot still, and it makes me feel a little curious and good. And I never saw the old lady sitting there again.
Written by author you/Hey Moon Baby. So this happened in July 2021, and it has really bothered me, but I haven't told anyone till this post. I work for DoorDash and was working later than usual, and it was getting dark. Pretty much fully dark, so I would guess around 8 p.m. I had finished a delivery and was about to pull onto a 6-lane main street, with center turning lane, out of a neighborhood residential road. The road I am trying to turn right onto is pretty dead. I look left and see a few cars with headlights on, almost a block away at a stoplight. I pull out, and as I do so, check one more time at the distance of the cars. I don't remember seeing the cars at the light, but now there's a black sedan bearing down on me, and I mean right there, about to hit me. I can still recall exactly what it looked like. Shape of headlights, the lights were on, and everything. I freeze up and prepare for impact while trying to accelerate out of its way, even though I know it's too late. Nothing happens. I look in all mirrors, turn and look behind me, and only see the other cars I had seen before, now approaching, but still at a distance. I end for the night and head home, completely shaken. There's no way I could have dodged that car, and it turned the corner onto the road I was on without hitting me. This is the only way I can explain it vanishing, but it makes no sense. At the speed it was going, at least 40 miles per hour, the speed limit on that road, it would have had to slam its brakes, but I also heard nothing. I had this eerie feeling as I drove home that I was dead. I couldn't shake it for weeks. Now, at this point, I am sure I am not a ghost. But still, I can't let go of the feeling that something is off. Maybe I glitched into a reality where I died or was badly injured. T-boned on the driver's side at 40 plus miles per hour would not be good, at least I imagine. Then glitched either back or maybe I ended up in a different reality from the one I started in. I feel crazy just saying that, but I know even now that something is not the same since. Some things in my life are different since then too. I don't want to make this too long, but there's a short description of the few things that stand out to me. My significant other's stepmother hates me. She was really friendly before, but just kinda got snobby. Rich bitch. But since then, she's always hostile when we visit. Making rude, snide remarks, and or giving me the cold shoulder the whole time. My best friend is really distant. She suddenly stopped reaching out to me, and when I reach out to her, she only replies with a few words and then stops. We used to chat for hours, almost every day before that. I tried getting to the bottom of it, and she keeps referring to it as a falling out and drifting apart, like it's something that happened over a long period. I don't want to weird her out with too many questions, but I just don't recall that. To me, it seemed like she suddenly went longer than usual without talking to me. I'm slowly rebuilding our relationship, but I'm still not sure what from. I'm less anxious about sex. I experienced abuse as a child and adolescent that left me afraid of sex. Suddenly, I'm just able to do it, enjoy it far easier with my significant other than before. We rarely had sex, barely once a month, before this, and now I can do it much more regularly without the difficult mental struggle that came before. I can still recall the trauma, but it suddenly doesn't bother me now. My significant other even complained before about how little we had sex, but has never mentioned being glad we do it more frequently now or anything. Just seems like that's how it is. Facebook memories I don't remember. So sometimes I scroll Facebook memories and I can remember most of them, or I can shrug and say, that seems like something I would share back then. LOL. But sometimes one will pop up, and I can't recall posting it at all. These are usually things I write out myself. What I was doing that day, or my feelings on something, which is not something I do much. But every week or so, I see one ranging from a year ago to 10 or more years ago that make me think, why did I post that? I don't remember saying or feeling that way at all. That's not like me, etc. There are smaller changes that are less important, but these are the ones I take note of every day. Thanks for reading this long post. I hope to hear everyone's ideas about what may be going on or what kind of glitch may have experienced. I've struggled with it.
Story by u/Somamasuku. I believe this must have taken place before 2010 to say the least, and while my family, older sister, my mom, and I were planning for Easter, something strange occurred. We were talking, and I believe we were decorating or mentioning going somewhere, but after that, it's all a blur. It's like immediately after it struck 4 or 5 p.m., the entire household just paused, and then time sped up. I asked my mom once I've woken up what happened, and did we do anything? But we fell asleep for I believe 2 whole days. But here's the thing, none of us were tired or stressed because of leaving the house. My only logical explanation is we fell asleep during Easter, but neither my mom or sister could explain, and they acted like it was a normal day. But it didn't exist for us, and we didn't have that day, Easter Day. And the day immediately after, I don't recall anything. It was like all of our decorations and eggs vanished. Almost like the two went somewhere without me knowing, but that it couldn't have been true because they were both in their rooms, asleep. At least, that's the best that I can recall. And it still freaks me out because once again, it really felt like we were all gone and all preparations we did disappeared as clear evidence. All I can clarify is that we lived in an apartment upstairs, and this was somewhere in Texas. But again, it's been more than a decade, and I'm still stuck on this. I even distinctly remember the apartment gate that would open and shut, and how it had rained a lot that week. Also, while typing this, it feels like more and more of the memory is fading away. But I know for a fact that we never stepped foot outside of that apartment. And I know we didn't eat anything during our sleep. And of course, they wouldn't have just left me home alone without telling.
Trigger warning. Mention of animals hit by a car, but they disappeared. Written by author u/SaxChan21. So here it is. I need to know if anyone else has experienced this. October 4th, 2020. I was making the second to last trip to move all my belongings to my new place. It was dark, about 7 p.m., and I was coming around a bend. An opossum met her fate at the hands of my Subaru Crosstrek. I did my best to avoid it, but to no avail. I felt the bump and slowly pulled off to the side of the road to cry it out. Being new to the area, I wasn't aware there was another road I could take, so about an hour later, I found the courage to make that last trip and grab the rest of my stuff. I passed the fateful spot going on the opposite direction and couldn't control my curious gaze, but the possum was nowhere to be seen. I thought, okay, I must have missed it since I'm on the other side of the road. Well, on my way back, I slowed down and scoured the road and the area surrounding. I didn't see anything, so I threw my hazards on, pulled over, and got out with a flashlight to see if maybe she had crawled into the ditch. There was no one, and nothing. No blood, no remains of any kind. The thought of a bird or other wild animal coming to scoop her up didn't seem to make sense, as certainly there would be at least a blood stain. Plus, it was now 8:30 p.m., and this was a moderately trafficked residential area anyway. I called it a night and checked even again the next morning with the help of the sun. But still, not a trace. Fast forward a year and 5 months later to March 4th, 2022. I'm driving home from work around 7 p.m., and a raccoon runs out in front of me. Unable to avoid it, I feel the impact. I cry. I get home and take a bit to gather myself. Feeling all too familiar, I drove back to see if she was still there. Again, there's not a trace to be found. Worth noting that these occurrences did not happen on the same street, but they did happen within a quarter mile of each other. Dumbfounded, I drove back home, chalking it up to a glitch. But this is unlike any glitch I've experienced before. What are your thoughts?
Story by u/themomo562. So this just happened recently, and it's fresh in my mind, so I thought that I'd leave it here and let Reddit judge if this is a glitch or not. Anyways, I take Unisum to sleep at night. I was taking my nightly fix as usual and dropped one of the pills. This has obviously happened to me before, as I'm sure I'm not the only one to drop a pill on occasion by accident. Me and my fiancé just moved into our new room. It's the same house, just a different room. So there isn't anything on the floor besides our bed and a TV stand. We have wood floors, and when I drop anything, I always hear it hit the floor, even small pills. It's how I've been finding things that I've dropped in my house for years. The thing is, the pill never made a noise. No slight tap on the ground, no rolling of the pill either. I looked all over for the damn thing, and I have a dog who sleeps with me and my fiancé from time to time, so I looked around pretty extensively because I was worried that Goliath, my dog, would find it and eat it and get way too much sleep. But for the life of me, I can't find the pill. There's no place it could have went to besides the ground in our room. But just in case, I checked my clothes that I was wearing when it happened, then the sheets on the bed, and I even looked around outside of our room in the hallway. My fiancé and I have been keeping an eye out for it for about a week and a half, but still, no pill. I know that it's not crazy of a glitch, but it's fascinated me since it's happened. Plus, the coincidence of it being a blue Unisum pill that's the exact same color blue as the pill in the Matrix is hilariously ironic. I've lived in this house since I was 1 year old, and I have had so many unexplainable things happen to me and my family. So, I'm not sure if it's a glitch or ghost or fairies, but it's definitely not normal shit happening. My house was built in the 60s, so it's a little old, and that might have something to do with it. So what do you all think happened? I'd love to hear some opinions and talk about the subject. And I'll update this whenever I find the elusive blue pill.
Missing Food by author U/AidMCY. So I was in my house alone with my sister, and we decided to order in some takeaway food. She decided not to have anything, but I was still hungry, so I ordered myself extra food for the next day. The food arrives like normal, and I go up to my bedroom and eat it. I don't use a plate, but use the bag it came in. After a while, I've eaten enough food that I can't anymore, and place the bags of extra food on my desk, right beside my bed. I go up to the bathroom and talk to my sister about something, and when I return to my room, the bag of food is gone. I laugh to myself, thinking my sister must have came in and took some food, or have put it away somewhere in the kitchen. But no, she hasn't moved since I had the food, and has no idea where it is. I asked her a few more times, and she continues to tell me that she doesn't know where the food is. After this, I go into my bedroom and look everywhere. Under the desk, under the bed, in every drawer that I know it couldn't be in. But it's nowhere. So now, it's been a few months, and I never found a bag of missing takeaway food in my room. My bedroom is very small. It doesn't even have a wardrobe. So now I live in fear that a bag of food is rotting right now, in my room somewhere that I just cannot see. All the windows and the doors in my room were closed, and I definitely did not move the bag from the desk before leaving the room. So it just vanished, or glitched, out of existence.
Story by U/Tears of the Sun. So basically, I often see or hear people and things that aren't there. Nothing like big, maybe a reflection of a car passing that actually didn't, or sound of someone walking behind me, but there's no one. I'm pretty used to it by now. But this one time, I was coming back home from school. If it matters to anyone, I was in second year in high school. On the way home, on the way I usually take, everything was normal. Super sunny day, birds were chirping, you could hear nature around. And then, I got to the end of an alley where I had to cross a road. There isn't an actual crossroad on the road, so I have to be careful when crossing. The place where I need to cross is somewhere by the end of the huge hill, so I always look up in case some car just rushes through without looking at the road. When I started walking, since there were no cars, everything was super silent. No birds, no nature sounds, no nothing. And when I was about halfway across, there was a loud car sound on the top of the hill, rushing super fast down at me. I started running across, and when I did, he passed right behind me, and I turned to look at the maniac that almost hit me. The road at the end of the hill is pretty long, so you would normally think he'll just go rushing down the road. But when I turned in that same second, he wasn't there. No sounds of the loud car going in the distance. Nothing. But at the same time, everything was back to normal. Birds and other nature sounds. It was like when I was on that road, I wasn't actually where I was supposed to be. This one is pretty stuck with me because it was kinda almost like a close death experience, and I could never understand it. Why me in that time, and what does it mean? What did I actually witness? For those who want to know, the car was rusty, kind of an old car. It was brown, and it looked kind of like a 1980s Volkswagen, but not exactly. It was more elongated at the front. Did anyone have any similar experience like this? Story by U/Little Russo. This happened for the second time today, and it really freaked me out. The first time it happened, I wanted to share a post here, But I just didn't feel like it was enough on its own. I honestly don't know if this could be classed as a glitch, but the feeling that I get from this when it happens is that the concept of time isn't real or linear, and we have the ability to basically experience things from the future without even noticing until after it's happened. It sounds crazy, right? But I'll explain. So here it is. This has happened to me twice now. I am an artist, and both times this has happened has been when I have an idea in my head and I will scour through the reference images until I find the one. Not that I have an exact known building in my mind, just something that looks how I imagine the scene in my mind. I will choose a building that I don't know anything about, just that I like the look of. The first time was a few months ago. I was drawing an Amsterdam street scene. I had a look through various blogs, Instagram accounts, and Google searches until I found a building that I felt was just right to draw. I started drawing it and then went to make a coffee and have a quick break from drawing. I sat down with my coffee and was mindlessly flicking through Instagram stories when someone I know who lives in Amsterdam shared a photo. And what was in the background? The exact same damn house that I just drawn. Now, I know what you're thinking. You probably think I just thought they were the same building because the canal houses often have similar features. I took 2 screenshots and compared everything, from the window frames, the shape of the roof, the things outside the building, the tree, the stones on the pavement, and the buildings next door. It was 100% the same building. I also know Amsterdam quite well myself, and I can't say with 100% certainty that it's the exact same building. I messaged the guy I know and said, "Is that a famous building or something?" He said it wasn't, and he hadn't even specifically photographed that building. It was a regular Amsterdam building, a nice building but nothing extraordinary compared to every other building there. Nothing that makes it stand out more than the others. I explained to him what had happened and showed him my screenshots and my drawing, and he was equally as freaked out too. Please bear in mind that this all happened within the space of an hour or less. Today, the same thing happened again with another building. 2 days ago, I was scouring the internet looking for references for a London warehouse, Victorian period. I already had the idea of how it would look in my mind, and I just needed to find a photograph to draw from that match. So, I looked through hundreds of warehouses and picked one. It had a nice curved shape to the roof, and some white writing on the wall that said, "Spratt's Patent Limited." So, I drew it. Weird fact, this warehouse was also next to a canal, so both my drawings I'm referring to are canal scenes. Today, I was eating my dinner and the TV was on. A still image flashed on the screen, and guess what it was? It was the exact same building that I had just drawn 2 days ago. Same angle and everything. I was once again freaked out. The program was not even anything about the building. It was just a still image that quickly flashed up to show where they were filming. Some statistics for you. In Amsterdam, there are believed to be around 7,000 historical canal houses. What made me choose this one? I can't find any estimation online of how many Victorian warehouses there are in London, but I grew up there, and I can tell you that London is full of historical buildings and warehouses and wharves. Lots of folks will just tell me it's a coincidence, but personally in my soul, I feel there is more to it than that. As an artist, I don't just draw anything for the sake of it. I draw things that come from my soul, and where do my ideas come from? In these instances, I can honestly tell you that I feel like my ideas must have come from the near future. Time cannot be as linear as we believe it is. I hope this makes an interesting read, and I would love to hear your thoughts or similar stories. Story by u/Q224. Okay, I still don't understand what happened. I don't drink or do drugs or take any medications, and I don't have any hallucinations. But a few weeks ago, I was in the kitchen. Suddenly, I hear some guy say in a very loud voice, "Hey, hi, hello." I look around, but there isn't anyone. I can't find the source of the voice. I thought it was my uncle, but the voice doesn't stop there. He then says to just turn off the light. I just stand there confused about who he is. Then he tells me again to turn the light off. I don't do anything and the voice stops, and I just go back to my room. Now, our neighbor's house is very close to us, so we hear their voices all the time. But it sounded like there was someone in the kitchen. Our kitchen only has one window on the outside that is near the ceiling, but if someone were to peek into that, they would have to climb on the roof of our house because our kitchen is on the second floor. But wouldn't it be strange to climb on the roof of someone's house and tell them to turn off the light? It could be my neighbor, but I recognized their voices. My mom was in the other room and sleeping, and she didn't hear anything. Another thing is, it was more than 10 p.m. at night. Most likely explanation is that the voice was coming from my neighbor's home. But I am still confused about what happened, and I haven't experienced anything like this before. Story by u/Scott and Shady Side. Add this year to the impressive and growing list of glitches since moving into this place a little over a year ago. Cat sitting for a couple of weeks. To simplify the visual, my place is laid out in a circle. I kept 2 doors shut that lead to the stairs so that my place looks like a Pac-Man. Imagine my surprise when I got up, was standing at one of the doors, and heard a meow from the other side. I opened the door and sure enough, there's a cat there. I go around the corner and yep, the other door is open. To give some context on that door, about a week previous, I tried to open that door and thought that it was deadlocked from the other side because it was so hard. This time of year, the doors are warped because of weather, so it sticks. It wasn't until I went to the other side and solved that it was in fact not deadlocked that I realized just how stuck the door gets. I immediately shut the door and deadbolted it, and I texted Cat Mom about the incident and jokingly asked if they had a habit of opening doors. I told her that I was deadbolting the door, and if it opens again, we have bigger problems, which was definitely a foreshadowing. I went from the door to my couch and laid down to nap, and about half an hour later, I woke up to 2 cats bolting out of the room. Both leaped up on top of the couch above me, crouched down, and stared at the entrance to the room. I was like, what the hell is going on? So I go in the room to see what they knocked over or broke, but instead found that once dead-bolted door wide open. 3 to 4 times that night, the cats came zooming out of the room as if something chased them. I say that because they weren't chasing each other. Rather, They ran together and either hid or perched near me, staring into the room, and they wouldn't go back inside again. Story by U/Andy Chamomile. This happened about 8 years ago when I was in university. I had to leave in the middle of a lecture because I had to pee. The hallways were empty and the closest women's bathroom was in the next building. This bathroom was extremely old and kind of dingy, and as I approached the building, I clearly see 2 other girls rushing into the bathroom. One of them was wearing a pink dress, and the other had jeans and a white shirt. I remember this clearly because I really had to pee and knew that this bathroom only had 3 tiny stalls. So I was hoping that there was nobody else inside there. I run the rest of the way and see that 2 of the stalls are occupied and the one in the left corner is empty. As I do my business, I hear the girl from the stall in the other corner curse and cry out that she got her period and doesn't have a tampon with her. She asked if any of us had any pads or tampons that she could use. And since I booked it out of class, I left all of my stuff at my desk and only took my cell phone and wallet. I tell her that I don't have anything, but perhaps the girl in the center stall might have something. I can clearly see her jeans and light brown Mary Jane shoes on the floor, because these stall walls didn't go all the way down. She's tapping her feet on the floor, but she doesn't say anything. The other girl clearly sees her too and begs her to please help her out. But there's no response. The period girl starts getting pissed and rants that women should help each other out, and if the girl in the middle stall doesn't have anything, she can just say so. Then at this point, I am done with my business, and the period girl resorts to using toilet paper. I come out first, and my heart drops as I notice that the middle stall door is partly open. Something is definitely off. I'm feeling goosebumps, and I gently push the door open, and nobody is there. I tell the other girl that the stall is empty. She curses some more, comes out of her stall and freezes when she sees for herself. She tells me, "What the fuck? I literally walked into the bathroom with this girl at the same time. I even held the door open for her. She was tapping her feet a few seconds ago." We looked at each other, completely spooked at the empty toilet staring back at us. Everything felt horribly off. We confirmed that we both had seen her. Brunette, white shirt, jeans, and Mary Janes. We were not crazy. We washed our hands in silence and rushed outside. It immediately felt like we walked into another world. We both felt so much better. The sun was shining. It was like nothing had happened at all. And we chatted about never using that bathroom again. We said our goodbyes and then went back to class. This was such a weird experience, and I truly never went to that bathroom again. I've thought about ways to explain what happened. Was it a ghost? How could a person that seemed so real just vanish? Part of me has always wondered if this was something like 2 parallel dimensions merging for just a brief moment. Maybe in the other dimension, the girl with the Mary Janes came out of the stall, and we were the ones who mysteriously vanished instead. Story by U/Yuri High. To somewhat preface this story, I want to start by saying that I have had a few small glitches prior to this one. Usually, I was able to explain the missing remote or phones that would reappear in obvious locations as just being overlooked. That ability to explain of these phenomena as a coincidence would suddenly change. At this point, I had been a mailman in my hometown for a little over 4 years. As anyone who comes into the post office may know that when you first start out, you're usually stuck on least desirable routes. On and off for that time, I was typically on the route where this glitch occurred, and I had been familiar with most of the residents. At the start of the route, and like clockwork, I would pass by an elderly lady walking her dog. She was of average height, skinny with short white hair, and her dog, whom also looked older, was a small beagle who wore a little pink collar. Every morning as I delivered this street's mail, she would walk her dog without even slightly acknowledging me. Weeks went by where I would wave or smile as I rode past, but she never returned the gesture. I would just ride past her somewhere along the sidewalk, and when I got to her house to drop off her mail, grab her outgoing, and usually place her package of presumably medicine on the porch. One day, as I am headed to the start of the street, I can see her again walking her dog. I'll call her Miss Smith. As I got closer, though, something seemed kind of off. Her pace was slightly faster, and her entire stride seemed more energetic. When I came down to the other side of the street that she was coming up, she called out to me. She said, "Hey, mailman, if you have any mail for me, I'll go ahead and take it." She said all of this, waving and smiling. The dog and the collar was the same, but this wasn't Miss Smith. She was slightly taller, with much longer gray hair and glasses. Taken a bit back, she again confirmed that she would get the mail for 1245. And as I rode off, I thought it was strange because I knew Miss Smith lived alone. Only her car was in the yard, only her name was on the mail, and any time I left any other name of mail in her box, she kindly wrote return to sender on it. I completely chalked it up to her being a relative or a caretaker and thought no more about it. That was until this new lady was there every morning. Again, like clockwork, for the next few days I was greeted with smiles, waves, exclamations about the beautiful weather, all while she was walking her dog. Then one morning, she had medicine to sign for. I was running behind on the route and didn't see her walking down the sidewalk, so I knocked on her door. The skinnier white-haired lady didn't answer. It was the same grayish-haired lady that I had been talking to for the past week answered. I said hello and that I had a package for Miss Smith to sign for, and was she home? She chuckled and said, "I'm Miss Smith," and thanked me for always getting her outgoing mail. I was stunned. This wasn't the lady that was always there in the beginning. I asked her where the other white-haired lady was, and she asked who. I said the other lady that I used to see walk your dog. She looked confused and confirmed that she lived alone and that other than her middle-aged son, she didn't have any visitors. Again, confused, I just took it for mistaken identity, maybe a neighbor or friend. Then, the very next day, as I started my route, right along the sidewalk, was a little old lady. She was of average height, skinny with short white hair. She didn't have glasses, and she was walking a little gray-haired beagle with a pink collar. As I rode past and waved, she never looked up. She didn't smile, she didn't ask for the mail, and she didn't tell me how nice the weather was. And I pulled into an adjacent parking lot and watched her for the next 5 minutes walk down the sidewalk, and then into 1245 and shut the door. Every day for the next 5 months, I was on the route and I never saw the gray-haired lady again. Whoever the vibrate lady was at 1245 during that week, before I realized and asked questions, it wasn't her. It wasn't the Miss Smith. Story by you/Bitzically. So this happened this evening, and I'm still kinda shook up. Anyways, I left from my job and I always go by foot because it's just a 15-minute walk. I walk down the hill, go through a small park, which is just a 5-minute trip through it, and I'm a small block away from my building. Today, I went into the park and I just had the feeling that I had to check the time, which I did, and it was around 7:15. I walked through the park and nothing happened, and when I exited the park, I got a message from my roommate that said, "Hey, what's taking you so long? Are you okay?" I was so confused because I left the job on time and it was all okay, And then I looked at the clock. It was 8:15. I was so scared, and I am still scared because I really don't know what happened. I literally just walked normally through the park. I didn't see people or animals or anything, and I didn't stop or sit down or anything. The park is right next to the big avenue, and I could see the cars all the time. I wasn't secluded anywhere. I'm wondering if any of you guys experience the same similar thing. Do you have any explanation? Story by u/BoobaFat13. So I'll be honest, when people say their items duplicated, I don't really take it 100%. Most people aren't even posting any pictures of the said items either. However, I just pulled 2 of the same bra top out of my laundry basket, and I only bought 1. I've only had 1. I've only been able to wear 1 every laundry rotation. I wasn't accidentally sent 2 by the company when I ordered them. I would remember something cool like that happening and getting a freebie. Unless I really just didn't notice that I got 2 of them. However, more explanation about why I doubt this due to the tags below. My only other explanation for this is my partner is cheating on me with someone who left the exact same bra in the exact same size and put it in my laundry basket, which isn't out of the realm of possibility, but also unlikely that it would be the same exact bra and size. So, the picture of the bras where they are on the floor is what I just pulled from my laundry. I even screenshotted my order from my email because I went to see if I forgot that I bought 2 for some reason. But nope, just 1. I even put the screenshot of the picture from the website so you could see it better. Now, the crazy part is the tag. One of the bras has the torrid curve tag part cut off. If I cut off a tag from my clothes, all of them go, and not just 1. So I would never have cut off just 1 and left the rest. The one I am considering as my bra is the one with the little plastic on the tag part. I do this a lot because I'm lazy, and sometimes I don't break the plastic when I pull the price tag off, so I just left it. Now, who is missing a bra that we both own in the same size, and you cut off just 1 tag? Story by u/Yugatro. So this happened a few years ago. I was driving back from college, and I live in the Fenlands in the UK, and anyone who knows the Fenlands knows roads are limited. I was driving towards Ellie at the sudden roundabout. I live in the countryside, and there was really only one way to get to my house from where I was coming from, and it was the way that I was going. It was a rush hour, and I was stuck in slow-moving traffic. I was looking at the other side of the road and spotted my dad's car driving in the opposite direction. His car was a bright blue Citroën Picasso. He got it when they first came out, and there weren't many of these cars in the area, so it did catch my eye. Not to mention that his number plate ended with HAHA. I looked at the number plate first and there it was. XXX HAHA. Surprised, I looked up, and there they were, my parents. Both looked really angry. I waved to get their attention, wondering what was wrong. But they didn't look. They just carried on looking straight forward. I was a bit concerned with how angry they looked and the fact that they didn't notice that I was sitting only a few cars in front of them. Not to mention, I was easy to spot. I had a bright orange Corsa at that time, not hard to miss and a very rare color for any car. So usually, people who knew me noticed my car before I saw them. I couldn't really stop. The traffic was moving and I couldn't turn around. As I said, the road was packed and there were no safe places to pull over. From my direction, I was about 10 minutes from home, so I thought it would be best to carry on home than ring Mom's phone as she wasn't driving to see what was wrong. I sort of raced home once I got off the main road and onto the back lanes. We had quite a long winding drive with huge bush on either side, so you couldn't really see our drive or the house from the angle of the road. And as I drove up the drive, I was shocked to see my dad's car sitting front and center of the drive, in its usual place. Confused, I parked up and ran into the house to find my dad and Mom sitting in the living room. I asked them what was wrong, forgetting there was no way that they got home first. They both looked perplexed and said nothing. I asked how they got home before me, and they said that they hadn't left the house all day. Dad hadn't been well, so they were relaxing all day watching TV. I still wonder what I saw. It was their car, same number plate. Mom was even wearing her distinctive raincoat. And even if they were pulling a prank on me, there was no way they would have gotten home before me, because there is no road that they could have slipped down to beat me to the house. Story by u/zigzagx3. Not long after the first COVID lockdown started, I was talking to one of my best friends, Kay, about movies on Netflix and Prime worth checking out. For context, I literally only had 3 friends who I talked to at that time. The only other people I talked to were my doctor, which is a 15-minute phone call every 2 months, and random texts to and from my mom. I never do phone calls unless it's an emergency. Kay was the only person that I visited and spoke to in person for months during the initial lockdown. Anyways, he asked me if I'd seen the Mandela Effect, and I told him that I hadn't, and asked what it was about. He then asked if I knew what the actual Mandela Effect was, and I told him no, I didn't. Kay went into great detail, as he always does, explaining the phenomenon to me, where the name came from, along with at least 20 or 30 examples, like the Berenstain Bears and the Monopoly Man. After his super thorough psych lecture, he told me about the movie The Mandela Effect. He gave me the whole setup and went on and on about how I should really watch it. A couple weeks later, I turned it on, and it was absolutely 100% just as good as he said it was. I was so excited, I texted my other 2 friends to tell them about the movie, and I even told them about how Kay had recommended it to me, and I explained what the Mandela Effect was in the same way Kay explained it to me, and they enjoyed it too when they watched it. Fast forward to early fall, I was visiting Kay and his family, and his mom asked for a movie suggestion. I asked if Kay had already made them watch The Mandela Effect, and turns out he hadn't. Again, I went in depth about the actual phenomena the movie was named after, told them all about how Kay explained it all to me, and made me watch it. and I made my 2 other friends watch it and etc. Kay woke up from a nap shortly after she started the movie, came into the living room, and started making fun of the movie we chose because it looked really dumb, and asked what it was. To cut to the chase, he had never even heard of the movie, and he didn't even have a firm grasp on what the Mandela effect really was. I argued with him for 10 minutes about whether or not he'd told me about it, and I went over our entire conversation I vividly remember having in his room. I ended up teaching him some examples that he'd never heard of, things that he himself taught me. Have you ever met somebody way too smart to act dumb? Well, that's him. I'm sure you think that he was probably just messing with me, but I can assure you with 100% confidence that he absolutely wasn't. This man cannot lie. He also cannot miss an opportunity to take credit for something he did, especially when it comes to making a bomb-ass movie suggestion or educating someone or something that he knows more about. And if he were to have somehow made it that far into his prank, which has never happened before, as I said, he can't lie, and I'm a human lie detector. He most certainly would not miss the opportunity to start laughing at me and make it very known that he pulled one over on me. I know you don't know either of us, but this really wasn't a prank, and I really have a full and vivid memory of the entire Mandela effect conversation. We still both think the other one is batshit. And about an hour later, the full irony of what happened hit him, and he finally got the opportunity to poke fun at me. I still have no idea how or what happened. Oh, and I specifically remember it being called the Mandela effect, both when he told me about it and when I watched the movie. How? Is this a glitch in the Matrix? Does this count? Story by you/the Arachne Kid. I worked at a dog daycare/boarding facility, and I've worked with Nikki and William. For weird company rules about social media, the names have been changed. They are 2 mini German shepherds, not mixed breeds, but German shepherd dogs with weird traits. They are both over 1.5 years old and have full German shepherd traits. One is just darker with mildly different facial features, but haven't gotten more than 45 pounds. Nikki has always been afraid of men, and William always loves their daycare guide. 2 days ago, both showed nothing but love. Nikki was like a whole new dog, yet weirdly similar to William. The problem was when they both answered to each other's name, until I went on break. I told a few co-workers, and before I could light a cigarette, Nikki's mom pulls in, and I tell her how great she did that day. I re-enter the lobby, and she has the dog that had answered as William all day. Everyone and the pet profile showed it was Nikki. And all of a sudden, Nikki was submissive and avoidant towards me, as she was known for in the past. I hadn't even smoked the cigarette I wanted. I was only out there because I wanted to see the dog go at that point. The dog who had jumped up in excitement all day to the name Nikki was now answering to William. It all seemed so seamless, but when I started paying attention to those things, it made me seem weird or confused to my co-workers. Then, when I look at the computer, I am apparently wrong. I spend roughly 30 hours with these particular dogs per week. I thought I had made huge steps with Nikki, not fearing me, after she started seeing us over 3 months ago. But today, she switched dogs and no one else noticed, including the owner. I spent a night or so wondering if I should worry. Then today, I got bit by a dog that I know very well during a scuffle with another dog in the room, that I also know and care for regularly, just 22 minutes into my shift. Story by u/shabsxd. Okay, this happened 2 days ago, and no one in my friend group can help me figure out a logical explanation. I work in a building with a bunch of different business offices. We share a communal restroom outside in the common area, and we can only get in with a key, and only employees from various offices have keys. I was walking to the women's restroom, and another lady was already ahead of me going towards the restroom too. She had on a business attire and black pointy heels. She opens the women's restroom door and pushes it open so I can grab the door before it closes. I say thanks, and she's still ahead of me. Now, the restroom only had 3 bathroom stalls, 2 small ones and 1 large stall on the far right. I see her go into the middle stall, and I stand for a second and decide just to take the other small stall on the far left. So now, the only stall available is a large stall on the far right. These stall doors and walls don't reach all the way up to the floor, so you can see the feet of people next to you and walking past your stall. Hopefully this makes sense to you. I sit down and see the lady's black heels next to me. They were like a particularly older style, so they just stood out to me. I don't know, I was just aware of what they looked like. She was already in the middle of her bathroom business, and I turned to the other side to grab some toilet paper. And I hear someone else enter the restroom, and I see brown heels walk across from in front my restroom door. I see this pair of brown heels walk into the stall next to me, right where I had just seen black heels literally moments ago. And it really caught me off guard. I thought that maybe 2 people were having a meeting in the restroom, if you know what I mean. But no, I only see the brown heels now, and I am super confused because this was happening in a matter of seconds. So I finish up super quick, and when I step outside, I see that both the small and large stalls are occupied. I bend down and see a black pair of heels in the large stall and the brown pair in the stall next to me. And now, I am panicked because I know for a fact that the black pair were in the stall next to me, and this wasn't like minutes long. This was moments. The lady who had on the black pair of heels was like peeing when the other lady walked in, so I don't understand how she suddenly flew into the large stall. I stood in the sink area for a second and was contemplating maybe asking these women what kind of prank they were pulling, but I already felt crazy, so I didn't want to scare the 2 random women with what I just saw. I also had this weird odd sensation that I saw something that I wasn't supposed to. The only way I can explain the feeling is like when you get caught doing something wrong. I had goosebumps, and I honestly felt like something dropped to the pit of my stomach. Now, before people say, maybe she was out of toilet paper, these restrooms get stocked every morning, and I don't think that I've ever seen a stall run out of toilet paper in the last 5 years that I've worked in this complex. Another explanation I've heard is, maybe you just didn't notice her change stalls. Which could be the case if she wasn't the first to enter the stalls. She was already in the middle of her business by the time that I sat down and situated myself. Again, all this happened in the matter of moments. The brown heels walked in seconds after we had entered our stalls. So yeah, I can't explain it. I don't know what I saw, and I was fully aware and conscious of my surroundings. I didn't even have my phone on me, so it's not like I was distracted. And I had slept enough, had my coffee, and I know it sounds crazy, but that's why I'm sharing the story here. Story by U/Iravi Kutan Pillai. I need help. I don't really know how to put it correctly. It all feels very strange and I am seriously doubting my own consciousness. I am an Indian working in KSA for the last 9 years, and I haven't been able to take a vacation for the last 4 years, working continuously because of COVID and shit. When I reached India last week after a long journey, I called my friends to meet at our usual fast food joint. We were talking about so many things, and I was trying to catch up with what's happening around our locality. Then I proceed to ask them about a new football turf that I saw on the way and suggested that we should play there sometime. My friends agreed to that, but with a puzzled expression. I started to ask them about our local football club. Are they still using the orange jersey like they used to? Who are still playing in the team? Which tournament did we last play? They did answer all these questions, but at the end, they asked me why I'm talking about football. I laughed at them and said because we love football, and I along with another one of our friend were the only local boys used to play for the club when they participated in big tournaments. And I reminded them about how big the celebrations were for the 2010 Football World Cup that we had in our village. They looked at each other and laughed at me and said that I have gone mad. I kept telling them about some tournaments and how I was certain other players' performances and some specific instances. Their reaction was the same as before. According to them, I was never into football, and I have never even been an average player. And some of the incidents that I mentioned did really happen, but I was never part of it. Now I'm pissed and confused at the same time. I know I was a good player. I know that I played for that club, but these fuckers keep telling me that I wasn't. But there is another thing. I know I played for my college team. And there is one guy from my place who was my senior in college. He must have known about me or at least seen me playing for the college team. So, I asked my friend to call this guy and ask him about me and football. He answered the phone, and like all my other friends, he said that he has never seen me play football. But I have something else to prove my point. Photos. I have uploaded some of the college team photos when we won a tournament. I proceed to open my Facebook and scroll through the photos, scrolling down and down and down. There is no fucking photo. I clearly remember the photos with our Real Madrid jersey, but it wasn't there. We decided to end this conversation there and then left for home. I was so confused, but I didn't talk to anybody about this. The next morning, I got a call from our courier services for the package that I have sent from KSA. Now, I remembered something. I have sent my football shoe in that cargo that I used to play near my company camp with the same shoe. I received the package, took it home, opened it, and there is no football shoe in there. Now, I am seriously pissed, and I called my company people in KSA, and they said they have never seen me playing football. I called my college friends, and they have never seen me play football. I asked my family, but same. I am pretty damn sure what I think about me is real, and I know it's only been a week. But I think everybody around me has gone through some eternal sunshine shit and their mind got erased or something. Or I am in deep trouble and need help. I have a couple updates about this. Update number 1. My mother gave me a bunch of clothes which, according to her, I left it here when I went back to KSA 4 years ago. And guess what? I have no recollection of owning that bunch. It somewhat fits me given it's 4 years old, and as far as I can remember, I use ready-made shirts. All the shirts she has given me are tailor-made, which is very unlike me. Update number 2. I went to the turf with my friends, and there were a bunch of guys warming up to play. Some of them I knew before, and had a little chat and joined them, and I fucking killed the game. I was seriously doubting myself before, but not anymore. I know who I am, and I know what I am saying is true. The frustrating part is that my friends who were there with me keep saying that I must have been playing with some Saudi guys for the past 4 years, and they still don't believe me. Update number 3. Lots of people recommending me to consult a doctor made me remember one incident that happened while I was in the college team. It was a training session and I fell down while controlling the ball, and the guy next to me tried to clear the ball, but he missed it and it kicked me on my ribs. I shrugged it off and kept playing, but after the session, we were changing to leave and I felt pain in my ribs, and I called my trainer. He called an ambulance and I got admitted in the hospital, and they did some tests. I was fine, but they wanted me to be in observation for 24 hours. I remember my father and uncle being there after I informed them, and I remember my college friends being there on the next day. Let's see if anybody remembers this. Update number 4. As I expected, nobody remembered nothing. I went to the hospital to check the record, and there were no records at all. Update number 5. I met my trainer. I asked him about the incident, and even though he confirmed the incident really happened, but a couple of things I got wrong. According to him, number 1, it wasn't an ambulance but his own car. And number 2, the guy who got injured wasn't me, but some other kid, and that I was never part of the team.
Written by you/John Jackman, 1029. As I was reading the recent post by you/our-ad3977 about time advancing, it reminded me of an incident 2 years ago that I'd somehow forgot about at the time. One night I was over at my buddy's house and we were watching TV. Being bored out of our damn minds for a few hours, we decided to go out for another cigarette or two. As we got outside, we realized that the weather had cleared up. It was sometime in August, so it was warm enough to just hang out and sit outside the window and bullshit for a while. After an hour or so, I look at my watch and it's 1:03 a.m. And that's later than I thought it was, so I verify with my phone. I look at my friend and say something along the lines of, "Holy hell, it's already 1:03. Where did the time go?" We just went back to talking and smoking. And 5 or 6 cigarettes later, I look at my watch again. It reads 1 a.m. This confuses me greatly. Keep in mind, I have a quality analog clock that's incapable of adjusting to daylight savings time, which starts in March and ends in November, let alone the date where there's only 30 days a month, and it wouldn't roll back. Regardless, I think my watch has malfunctioned, so I look at my phone. It also reads 1 a.m. I tell my friend to check his phone. He pulls it out, and the look on his face was very concerning. We just sit and look at each other in utter confusion, and we were kind of freaked out, especially because we confirmed with each other that it was definitely 1:03 earlier, and that we'd been chain smoking for at least another half hour. We pondered it for a while and eventually wrote it off as one of the universe's mysteries. To this day, I cannot even begin to explain it.
Story by U/Amor Tenshando. It was a Saturday afternoon and I was watching a suspense movie with my mom. I remember it had Julianne Moore on it, and it had something to do with a guy with multiple personalities. It was a cold and foggy winter day outside, so there wasn't anybody outside in the streets or anything, and it was a very quiet day in general. There was a window by the side of the sofa that my mom was laid on, and I was in another sofa parallel to the one she was in. It was a pretty small living room, and since I was also laid down, we were both facing the TV, but I was pretty much facing the window too, and I only had to slightly turn my head to look outside. We had the neighbor's house on the other side of that window, but it was too far away for anyone from their side of the fence to reach our house. And besides, there was nobody home in their house that weekend. They had a dog and they even took the dog with them to wherever they traveled to. So the movie ended, and as the credits were rolling, we suddenly heard the window glass tremble a little, and there was a liquid squirt sound we heard. And when we looked to the window, there was a very large spot of water running through the glass. It was exactly like if someone had hit the window with a water gun. But immediately, my mom and I ran to the window, and there wasn't a soul out there. Also, from where I was sat, I could see if there was someone outside without getting up. And there wasn't. The only place where it could have come from was the neighbor's patio. But again, there wasn't anybody there. Our window was pretty high from the ground, and it was clear from the mark that the water made on the glass came from a straight angle, and not from above, not from below. It wasn't raining, and there was no one in sight. It just came out of nowhere, and there wasn't even any kind of movement outside, because it was cold and there was nobody in the street. That's pretty much it, really. It happened fast. It isn't anything too exciting. But from that day, my mom and I couldn't find a reasonable explanation to that happening. I mean, could it be a bird or something? That flew by and somehow peed on the window and managed to not collide against it. It sounds highly unlikely, and I would have seen at least a shadow of something moving outside, since I immediately looked in its direction. I honestly don't know.
Written by U/Music Hour. I posted this on my Facebook semi-joking earlier, but I do believe in stuff like this, so consider it a real possibility. I thought maybe it belonged here. Also, now I'm beginning to freak a little, because now there's a commercial that I was looking for, a controversial one, so I don't really want to disclose it and cause off-topic drama, and found it exists. Kind of, but it's completely different and was released about 11 years before it was released where I'm from. Or where I was. I don't even know if I was from there, honestly. Anyway, so I'm pretty sure I shifted realities or something, because this morning, I went to put on my glasses, and I have 2 pairs, and just wear whichever one I grab. And this morning, it was my blue frames. I don't like much because they're not as comfy. Feeling too lazy to go search for my comfy glasses, I shrugged and went on to finish getting ready for work. Fast forward to work, and I was in the bathroom, and suddenly got double vision out of nowhere. But after a second it got normal. I checked my glasses lenses, thinking maybe something was on them, and nothing that would be the cause that was there. Then I went back to my desk, and realized I saw green frames around my eyes, and not my blue ones. And that's just been on my mind all day. I also have to add, when I got home, my blue glasses were still on my bedside table, but in a different location. I'm positive I didn't change glasses before leaving my home.
Story by u/gingercakes19. This happened when my child was 5 years old. They're about to be 13 now. I was laying in bed one morning, playing on my phone, waiting for them to wake up, and about an hour into mindless scrolling, and yes, I was wide awake at that time, I heard them begin humming a cute little tune, skip to the refrigerator, open it, and pull out the lunch meat to snack on. They were stoked because I got the good stuff from the deli, so it was in the plastic bags and made a distinct sound when you opened it. They then shut the fridge, happily skipped back to the living room while humming, turned on the TV and began playing an episode of some cartoon show. I heard the dialogue in the beginning of the episode for about 30 to 45 seconds, before the sound just kinda faded out. It was silent again, and I was like, oh, they probably turned the TV down a little because it was so loud. I better get out of bed and stop being lazy. I can't leave them alone. So I get up and go into the living room and turn the corner to say, "Hi, Zoe." Except the TV was off, and they were nowhere to be found. I walked into their bedroom, and they were dead asleep. I walked in, sat on their bed and asked, "Did you just go back to sleep?" They were very confused and a little annoyed that I woke them up, and they had no clue what I was talking about, so I just let it go. I told them, "Well, you can get up and watch cartoons now if you want to." They got really excited and were like, "Okay, Mommy." I had to use the bathroom, so I went inside it and then shut the door. And that's when it happened. I heard them happily humming, skipping to the fridge. They opened it, grabbed the salami, then shut the door. They skipped back happily humming the exact same tune, turned on the TV show to the exact episode, and sat there munching on the salami for breakfast. Has anyone else had this happen? I've never had it happen since.
Written by Anonymous. So a few weeks ago, I was at work. I work as a videographer for our local TV station. I was at the backside of my work building, loading gear into my car. For context, the station sits right next to a very busy highway. The only other building next to it is a large office building that's been sitting empty for a while, presumably because of COVID. Otherwise, it's just the highway and trees. It was pouring rain, and I was standing at the trunk of my car quickly, getting my gear in before it got too wet. As I was doing this, I heard what sounded like a woman talking over a loudspeaker behind me. I turned around in confusion because I was the only one out there. At first, I thought it was a loud radio coming from someone on the highway. But the voice never faded away. It stayed at the same volume, which was quite loud. I couldn't understand what the woman was saying. The voice was clear, but the words were garbled, like I couldn't make sense of them. After about a minute, I noticed another co-worker drive into the lot, and I waited for them to get out of their car and start walking towards the door. I'm hoping to see if they noticed the voice. But they didn't react to it. They walked into the building as if nothing was going on, and even waved hello to me. There's no way they couldn't have heard it. That's how loud this voice was. My final theory was that maybe the office building next door had finally had people in it again, and the voice was coming from there. I closed the trunk, hopped in my car, and rolled down the window just a bit so I could continue to listen to the voice. I drove over the border between our parking lot and theirs. But when I looked over, there wasn't anyone there. The building was still empty. At this point, I was spooked. I also had a story to get to, so I ended up just closing the window and leaving. But in hindsight, I haven't been able to figure out where this disembodied voice had come from. It wasn't from the station, because we don't have loudspeakers on the outside of the building. And it wasn't coming from somewhere nearby, at least that I could find. The part that confuses me the most is my coworker. Why didn't they hear it? Or if they did, why didn't they hear it? Or if they did, why didn't they react? I've been working at this station for over 4 years, and I've never experienced anything like this. So I'm sure it's not a normal occurrence. Has anyone else experienced something like this?
Story by u/SailorGirl06. I was walking through a plaza across the street from my house to run a few errands, and as I was walking, I noticed a shortish man in a blue t-shirt and a pair of jeans with white hair. He seemed very familiar to me, so I was trying not to stare, but I kept looking at him. He raised his head, and when he noticed me, he smiled. This man was identical to my recently deceased grandfather. My grandfather was a Lithuanian man with very distinct and beautiful features. Clear, almost transparent blue eyes, high cheekbones, and a great smile. I have never met anyone else who resembled him. And not just similar looking, but identical, carbon copy. I immediately got goosebumps. I was too weirded out to stop him. But another man was walking in my direction after passing this doppelganger of my grandfather, and he noticed that I was shook. When he asked me what was wrong, I said, I think the man who just walked by was my grandfather. He didn't understand why it was such a big deal, and I showed him a picture of my grandfather and asked if he could confirm that the man we had seen was the man who just walked past. He said that he did see him, and it was certainly him just a moment ago. I pulled up the obituary that I had saved on my phone, and he confirmed that it was definitely the person who just passed us. But when we looked behind us, no one was there. He was speechless, and I was speechless. And I'm really wondering what just happened there. Story by u/Ashley Lynn. Yesterday, my boyfriend and I were enjoying the beautiful day, and we decided to take up a walk up to the local Cumberland farms to grab some iced coffees. Nothing out of the ordinary. Well, that was until on the walk back home. I want to explain the layout of the area briefly so you can kind of understand. So, there's our street, and at the end there's a blinking light, and then a pretty big corner on the left side. And then you're on a pretty busy main road where the Cumberland farms are on. As we were walking back down the main road and rounding the corner to get onto our street, a white Mercedes car came flying behind us around that corner. I get it. The person was probably looking at a car ahead and etc. It is kind of a blind corner, and cars do come around it fairly fast. But what's crazy is that we didn't even hear it. Something inside me just said to turn around, and as I did, the person, who was a black woman with dark hair and a red shirt on, was swerving to avoid us. My boyfriend and I saw the car, and we both saw the woman that was driving it. It was almost as if time had slowed down for us that brief moment. I said, "Holy shit, that car almost hit us." His reply was, "That white Benz?" We brushed it off, kept walking and talking, and didn't really think much of it. We were about 800 yards from our house when a woman, with dark hair and a red shirt on, was bringing in her garbage cans. You can tell she was most likely just getting back from work, still had her work badge on, and this was around 6 p.m. We live in a pretty small, friendly little community. The side her house is on is directly on the lake. We say hello, and she says, "I am so sorry. I didn't mean to scare you guys back there. I didn't even see you." We said that it was okay and that it's definitely a blind area, and we all laughed it off, and my boyfriend and I kept walking towards our home. Now, this is the weird part. The houses that are on the lakeside have literally the smallest driveways, basically non-existent, and pretty much no lawn either, so no garage, nowhere for a car to be pulled around or nothing. This particular home, the woman's home with the red shirt, honestly gives off more of a summer cabin kind of home, if that makes any sense at all. Anyways, there were 2 cars in a little parking lot area of her home. A bright red, and I mean apple red, and an ugly green, more on the dark side. Both are colors that you don't really see. I'm not sure of the exact type of car they were, but they were both the same besides the color. Ugly cars, I want to add. Definitely nowhere near what a Benz looked like. Not even close. More like what a Prius looks like. My boyfriend was the one that made the comment and said, "I thought it was a white Mercedes that almost hit us." I was so dumbfounded. I kept looking back trying to justify what the fuck just happened. It was 1,000% the same woman, but a totally different car? I mean, these cars' body shape were so beyond different that there's no way we could have possibly mixed it up, not to mention the color. A bright apple red and a Mercedes white. I woke up this morning still trying to rationalize this mix-up, and no matter how logical I try to be, I just can't. A friendly dog named Sam. Story by u/chef_fuzzy. Hello. I've never ever told this story to anyone, but I've kept it in my mind since happening in 1998. I just want to preface by saying that I've never held a belief in ghost, afterlife, or anything of that sort, either past or present. Even this event is not enough to make me believe ghosts are real. However, I do not have any material explanation for the event. It was mid-August 1998, and I was 22 years old and working a summer job at a gas station before heading back to school. I had started college late as I fumbled about for a year or 2 after high school. Anyways, on a nice warm summer night, cars would come and go, as we had a full-service pump and I'd walked out of my little storefront for every car and pumped their gas. The weather was perfect, not too hot, when normally it would be blisteringly hot that time of the year. Around the side of the building were the entrances to the bathrooms, and I headed that way to use the restroom, when I saw 2 hippie-looking teens with a dog, a boy and a girl. I grew up listening to bands like the Grateful Dead and Fish, and I still do. And while I don't present as a hippie, I feel very comfortable in those circles. I could tell these kids had probably been hitchhiking. They didn't look destitute, but they were dirty and probably a bit hungry. And even though I was probably no more than 5 years older than them, I felt bad and I wanted to help. I put a few bucks in the vending machine, bought them some snacks and drinks, and gave the dog a bowl of water. They were very thankful, and the dog was very friendly. We chatted for a minute when the boy said, "The dog's not ours. He was just hanging out here. He was friendly, so we just started playing and patting him. That was strange, of course, but not too crazy, right? Dogs get lost all the time. He was friendly and didn't look mistreated, so I just assumed that he had gotten lost. Oh, and he had a collar and a tag. Cool, I can find his owner. Oh, and his name is Sam. It's important to note that he would respond to me calling his name Sam. A car pulled up to the full-service pump, so I ran out and did my thing. Last I looked, the hippies and Sam were still hanging out at this time, sorta off to the side of the store, near where I first saw them. I finished up the car and turned around to head back to the storefront. No more people anywhere in sight. Nowhere, just gone. Perhaps they hitched the ride while I was turned around, but it was only a minute. When I walked out to the street, I could see quite a ways in both directions, and they were nowhere to be seen. This is the last that I saw of the two kids, and I do hope that they're okay. Sam was still there, but it was getting late, and I wanted to help. I decided to call the local police, who gave me the phone number of the animal shelter. I called over there, and the way that it was handled seemed very odd at that time, and still does, but I wanted to help, so I went along with it. Sam was a good boy after all, and the person that I spoke with at Animal Control will look up Sam's info based on the dog tag number. This person, instead of saying, "Hold on, we will send out an officer or even just call the owner," but instead, they gave me Sam's owner's phone number and told me to call. I called the number and an older man politely answered the phone, and I explained that I had Sam and I gave him water and that he was just hanging out with me here, but the gas station is closing soon, so it would be best for him to come pick up Sam. He seemed perplexed and asked me to describe Sam to him. So I did. Sam looked like a mutt/lab mix, darkish brown coat, medium to large sized dog, very friendly disposition, just a regular old good boy. But what the man said next has been rattling around my brain for the last 24 years. The man said, "We had a dog named Sam, but he passed away a good 10 years ago." I was dumbfounded, and all I could do was describe Sam again, to which the man said that, yeah, that sounds like Sam, but no way could it be. It just can't be. He was polite, and we talked back and forth for a bit more, but with no resolution, we hung up. I wasn't sure about what to do next, but I quickly realized that there was nothing for me to do. Because just like the hippie kids, Sam too was now nowhere to be seen. He just vanished. And my thoughts for this are, I would give anything to have this make sense, to be able to actually resolve this in a way that makes sense. But I have never been able to. I have lots and lots of thoughts and theories about this, but the post is already very long, and I'll end it here. If anyone has any thoughts about this, please leave it in the comment section. I would like to know. And thank you so much for listening. A gardening label changed by you/careless hellscape. I know this is a really insignificant thing to be concerned about, but I know it happened, and it's irritating. I was planting some spring herbs last week, and to keep track of which pot held seeds, I typed up some labels to print and then taped it on the pots. The first round of labels I made from memory, not from checking and counting all the different seeds that I planted. I printed like 6 labels, and noticed when I was taping them to the pots that I forgot oregano. It wasn't a big deal because I planned to plant more herbs the next day, and I would just make a label for oregano in the second batch. So, after I planted the following day, I made a few more labels, including that one that I was missing. This time, I went over what I needed one pot at a time, double checking so that I wouldn't forget anything. Everything was fine until a couple of days ago, when I was watering and I noticed that 2 different pots had basil labels, the original basil pot and the one that was supposed to be oregano. Everybody makes mistakes, sure, but I'm not an idiot. The first freaking label that I made the second day was for oregano. It said oregano when I taped it on the pot. I had no reason to type and print basil again, and I didn't. I didn't save and reopen the first label page, so the old label couldn't have been just the same included by mistake. It was a brand new draft. I didn't save either of them. My wife and kids would not have changed the labels around to mess with me, and I can't imagine what they would get out of it. I don't know how this happened. When I finished taping labels onto pots the second day, I spent a lot of time rearranging and making sure everything looked the way that I wanted it to. And for sure, I would have noticed if I had 2 pots with the same label. Claw clip randomly spawned in by u/Playboy Vance. Every time there's a post in this sub, I tend to rationalize it as much as I can because some things are explainable. However, the other night I was freaked out. For background info, I have a clear backpack because of gun threats in my area, so this is how our school takes precautions. There's a claw clip that I wear everywhere, and it's my favorite one, and I always put it in 4 places if I'm not wearing it: my purse, my front backpack pocket, my nightstand, or my downstairs bathroom. The other day after school, which was a Friday, I took it off and put it in my front pocket of my backpack, and I know this for a fact because I had taken a picture of my claw clip and sent it to my boyfriend and mentioned how one of the pieces had broken. I came home that Friday and like usual, it was only me. Fast forward to Saturday morning, I was getting ready to go to work and I couldn't find it for the life of me. It had basically disappeared. I checked my backpack and I emptied it completely out to where nothing was in it anymore, but I couldn't find my clip. I left it and just decided that I'd look for it later, and maybe didn't leave it where I thought I did. I came back home that night after work, and again, it was only me that had been going in and out of the house, and probably 2 days since my mom and brother are both away at this time. I got ready for bed, got a quick snack, and used my phone flashlight to guide me. And as I'm exiting my kitchen through our dining room, my phone shines off of something. I got to look at it, and there it is, my claw clip, and it's the only thing sitting in my backpack. Again, my backpack is clear and small, so if I had missed, I would have noticed it, especially in broad daylight. Needless to say, I was freaked out because I had checked thoroughly and it wasn't there. But then it was. I even asked my mom or brother if they had came home and didn't tell me. I even checked the house cameras, but nobody had been in the house besides me. This was super weird. I understand that a claw clip going missing isn't a huge deal, but it's the fact that I completely ransacked my backpack and saw nothing was in it, and then it magically appears. Nobody had placed it there. and I never saw it there when I checked. Disappearing Bamboo Shoots. Story by u/Kalina143. This happened a few months ago, and it still bothers me. I bought a jar of bamboo shoots and sesame oil because I was making Korean food and wanted to have it as a side dish. My family and I had dinner that night, and we had the jar on the table, and I remember putting it away in the fridge when I was cleaning up. The next day I went to heat up some leftovers, and when I looked in the fridge to get the bamboo shoots, I couldn't find them. We have 2 fridges in the house, so I went to look in the other fridge, thinking that I might have put them away there by accident, or someone may have moved them. When I couldn't find them there, I started feeling weird because I was sure that I put them away in the fridge. I brushed it off thinking that I might have absent-mindedly put them somewhere else, or someone else might have moved them. So later that night, I asked my family if they had moved them or seen them, and they all denied it. I started looking for them in all places that I thought it could be: pantry, kitchen, drawers, cupboards, and etc. But they were nowhere to be found. At this point, I thought they were playing a prank on me, but everyone denied it, and they seemed sincere. We don't really play pranks on each other, so it would be out of character. It became a mission for us all to find this damn jar, and we took everything out of the fridge multiple times, looked in even the most bizarre places, the garage, the entire house. Every member of the family spent over an hour looking for them. And in the end, we decided that I had absent-mindedly placed them somewhere, and eventually we'll find them in a bizarre place. I felt like I was losing my mind because this jar seemed to have disappeared from existence. A few weeks later, we had all forgotten about the incident, and I opened the fridge, and the jar of bamboo shoots is sitting in plain view in the exact place that I put them. They hadn't gone bad, and they hadn't been touched. It looked exactly like I remembered them looking when I put them away. Everyone was perplexed, and we kept them in the fridge for a few more days until I decided to throw them away because I was definitely not going to eat them. I saw myself across a parking lot. By u/JewTime8151. Every Saturday, I take my son to swimming lessons, and every week, it's a cluster getting there because this place is packed and chaotic. Every week, no matter how early I get there, finding parking is nearly impossible. Last Saturday, my parents offered to drop us off and then pick us up since parking is so scarce and they had a few errands to run in the area. I happily accepted their offer. They pulled us right up to the entrance, and I hopped out in the back with my son's bag, went around to grab him from his car seat, and we were on our way. This Saturday, I was back on my own and happened to find a parking spot adjacent to the front entrance. I parked, grabbed my purse, and got out to get my son from the rear passenger side. On my way to the other side of the car, I saw my parents' car in the loading zone in front of the building. I was instantly confused, but before my mind could register anything further, the back door opens, and it's me. Except, it's me last week. Same clothes and jacket that I had on then. I got out with my son's bag, and then headed to the other side of the car. At that moment, a large van drove by, and when it passed, my parents' car was totally gone, and so was I. This all unfolded in no more than 5 seconds. However, I was so flustered and upset that I got back in the car with my son and sat in the back seat with him for 20 minutes until I could compose myself. We missed the swimming lessons and instead sat in the car and ate snacks and listened to music. I don't drink, do drugs, or take any medication. I wasn't overly tired or upset or distracted that morning, but I know what I saw, and I am absolutely freaked out. This wasn't a doppelganger. This was me last week. My husband has been treating me like I'm near a nervous breakdown since I've told him what happened, and keeps asking me in different ways if I'm okay. I'm totally fine. I came home today to my husband and my family all waiting for me intervention style. I now understand why people keep these things to themselves. They all think that I'm exhausted and that I just need time to rest. Okay, I'm sorry. I've been messed up by a trash bag. Story by you/on the next Murray. I've been thinking about this for a month and decided against posting it because I thought it sounded inane, but it's upended my view of reality. I moved recently, and in my old house, there were a lot of items left by the previous tenant, who happened to be a friend, so they left me many items that I needed as it was easier for both of us, but many unneeded items as well. I was standing in the bathroom with a trash bag at my feet that was slightly behind me, so I was taking items from the sink counter, then turning around and dropping them into the trash bag. This is important because I literally could not have left the room and I was not moving my feet. At one point, I turned back and the trash bag is gone, along with everything in it. I checked the counter, drawers, floors, and etc., and there is no sign of any of the items that I threw away. I needed to be out of the house that day, and the entire time I moved, I looked for this bag. My roommate came later and I begged them to believe me. It was the only trash bag that I had of that color in the house, as it had come from my work and not the roll that I had at home. Additionally, there was no curbside pickup at that location, so I had to drive all of our trash to the dump myself. I emptied the entire house and even steam cleaned the carpets. And for the love of God, where is that bag? Spotlight from 30,000 feet by you/map editor master. I live in an isolated small town in Illinois. Me and my old friend used to throw around this LED frisbee during the summers. The light is in the center of the frisbee with a small battery. It's well balanced and made durable. And if the battery is low or moved out of place, the light can go on and off just like a flashlight. And this particular summer, the battery was at half and it was visibly noticeable for long-time users, just like my friend and I. It was still pretty bright and defiantly usable at night. So, as usual, past 8 p.m., we head to the empty 4-way down the road. The way we would position ourselves is both of us on the same street with a crossroad between us, very far apart from each other. I was slightly under some trees and my friend was in the open pretty much. It's just before dark, so you can still see everything, but very dim lighting. Now, the road we played on so happened to line up with an airliner flight path. I watched the stars, so I know many flight paths above my area, small or big, and this was a flight path for bigger planes. Not the massive jets, but you can clearly see that they are commercial airlines. So, this one night, as we were tossing the LED frisbee around, the exact moment an airplane was over us at least 30,000 feet, a gigantic circular light surrounded me and my friend for about 1 full second. Now, this light didn't move, fade in, go across the ground, swipe, or any movement. It literally was a still full circle of very bright light directly on us. I missed the frisbee catch and instantly jumped into the ditch without even thinking. My friend paused on the road and in a very scared voice asked if I had just seen the beam of light. We met in the middle of the four-way, puzzled at what we just seen. We checked the time and date and joked about being abducted or something. We checked the frisbee to see if the light went bright for a second, as though something minor happened with the battery inside. In the end, we both agreed that there was no way light from the plane could have reached us, as though maybe the headlights had just turned over and hit us for a moment. That was later researched and found to be highly unlikely, if not impossible. The light was not from the frisbee because what we seen was far bright and large. This event has widely contributed to my casadastrophobia, which is often triggered by seeing planes fly on that path. It was one thing or the other that glitched. We still don't know. Anyone could just say that the light glitched from the frisbee or plane. Somehow, it was one of them. I have this small anecdote from a couple of years ago that bugs me whenever I think about it. So, my girlfriend and I were alone in my house, not doing anything particularly interesting. It was kind of a lazy day, and we were just having a conversation. I was standing next to my bed, and she was sitting on the edge of it, and we were talking at a distance at about half a meter, looking each other in the eyes. Then, when I was talking, all of a sudden everything went black for a minuscule fraction of a second. It didn't interrupt me, there was no sound or noise, and I didn't feel physically anything, but I saw a black flash. Complete darkness, as if someone had held a sheet of black cardboard right in my face for a nanosecond. I completed my sentence, but I didn't let her reply, and I immediately asked her, "Did you see that too? Did everything go black for an instant?" And she said, yes, that she saw the exact same thing, but didn't say anything because she didn't want to interrupt me. I told her that when it happened, I didn't react because I thought I may have blinked involuntarily. But I asked because I didn't feel like I had blinked. And she told me that she wanted to ask me the same because she was thinking the same thing. We also agreed that it was impossible that it was something with the lighting because, well, it was in the middle of the day, and even though we were indoors, there's plenty of windows from the daylight to come into. But anyway, even if a huge object flew over my house, silently at an absurd speed, we are talking about pitch black darkness, and it was only for an instant. We agreed on how weird it was, but after a while of being confused, and neither of us being able to come up with an explanation or find anything online, we gave up and moved on. But as I said, it bugs me to this day. I know it's not much, but The lack of an explanation drives me a bit crazy. And I know it wasn't something internal, like a tiny aneurysm or something, because I wasn't the only one that experienced it. What are your thoughts about this? Maybe the system went down for maintenance or something? A tiny hiccup with a graphics processor. Hello everyone, it's your creepy sister here. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate each and every one of you. But I would also like to thank my amazing patrons, my top tippers, and my dearest channel members. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it with all of my heart. If you want to support the channel further, you could also choose to become a patron, a tipper, or a channel member. But remember, it's appreciated, but never a requirement. I would also like to announce that we have merch now. The link is in the description of the video, along with all my other social media links, like my Discord server, Twitter, Instagram, and others. You can connect with me and send your stories there. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and comments are highly appreciated. And remember, your fear feeds me.